Good evening. This is a CBS News special report. I'm Russ Mitchell in New York. We are breaking the programming with developing news. This from the White House. Sources tell CBS News that Osama Bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda, is dead and his body is in U.S. hands.
Yeah, baby.
We'll speak to the American people in just a few moments. Right now, let's go to the Pentagon and our national security correspondent, David Martin. David, what are you hearing?
Well, Russ, right now we have two sources from the Hill saying that Bin Laden was shot and killed, and Stephen Hadley, the former national security advisor for President Bush, says he has been authoritatively told by the White House that Bin Laden is dead. So certainly all indications are that this announcement by the president is going to be that after all these years, the U.S. or somebody has succeeded in killing Osama bin Laden.
It is at 10:47 Eastern Time. We just got news about an hour ago from the White House that the president wanted to speak to the American people. Obviously, this is unusual. Sources in the White House were telling us initially this was a quote-unquote big deal. And David, this certainly would fall into that category, correct?
It would, and it frankly comes as a surprise because for so many years people have said there was no trace of bin Laden, that he had gone absolutely silent, communicated only by courier. And somehow somebody finally got a location on bin Laden, and according to the sources that we have been talking to, he has been killed.
Let's kind of give people a timeline of bin Laden here. He's been on the most wanted, the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitive list since 1998 in the U.S. Embassy bombings. Of course, he's the person who claimed responsibility for the September 11th attacks. I just want to tell people who are tuning in right now, we're in special coverage right now, waiting to hear from the President of the United States. CBS News has confirmed that Osama bin Laden has been killed. His body is in U.S. hands. David, kind of give us, we talked about the timeline for a second ago and how big a deal this is. Is there any indication that there were efforts stepped up in the past several months to capture bin Laden?
They have been stepping up efforts to capture bin Laden, but we don't know why. Was that because they were finally getting some good intelligence on his whereabouts, or was it just out of frustration and they wanted to make one more big push to try and locate him? But whatever the chain of events, it seems to have yielded his location.
Yes, again, we're in special programming tonight. Osama bin Laden, CBS News has confirmed, has been killed. His body is in U.S. hands. We are waiting for a statement from President Obama from the East Room of the White House. Our Chip Reed is at the White House tonight, Chief White House Correspondent. Chip, what are you hearing?
Well, it certainly was very unusual. At about 10 o'clock, we were told that the president was going to make a statement from the East Room, and we were hearing rumors quite a bit earlier than that Osama bin Laden was dead, and we gradually put together a number of different sources who confirmed that in fact he had been killed, and that is certainly what we expect to hear from the president. They said he was going to speak at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That was 20 minutes ago. We're still waiting to hear. Certainly we're hoping to get some details from him exactly how this happened.
Again, as we pointed out, the White House earlier was calling this a quote-unquote big deal. What's the buzz at the White House tonight? What's the mood like there at this point?
Well, I tell you, it's frantic. When we first got here, I think everybody assumed it had something to do maybe with Libya, although we had heard those rumors about Osama bin Laden, but there was much to activity going on here for this to have to do with Libya. So I think immediately everybody assumed that it was much bigger than that, and that Osama bin Laden was probably the issue here. And of course, we now have confirmed that Osama bin Laden has been killed.
Let me ask you the same question I posed to David Martin in your beat there. Were you getting any indication that the efforts to get bin Laden had been stepped up in recent weeks and months?
We really were not. In fact, you may recall recently some WikiLeaks documents came out that gave some details on his movements right after 9/11. Well, he and his number two, Ayman al-Zawahiri, had been moving around Afghanistan by car and eventually moved into the Hindu Kush Mountains and into Tora Bora and then into Pakistan. And it was an interesting lesson in history, but there really wasn't much sense that they were closing in on him. Certainly the Predator drones and special forces have been aggressively looking for him for a very long time, and President Obama has said, whenever asked, that they are certainly on the search, but there was no indication in recent days that there had been progress made or that there was any imminent hope of catching him.
Chip Reed of the White House, we'll get back to you in just a minute. I want to remind folks at home that you're watching CBS News special coverage. CBS News has confirmed has confirmed that Osama Bin Laden has been killed. His body is in U.S. hands. We are waiting for a statement from the President of the United States. Our Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent Lara Logan and Correspondent Bob Orr are standing by in our Washington Bureau. Lara, I'll begin with you. In the big deal category, where does this fit?
Well, you know, there is a school of thought that will come out after this, Russ, and say that it doesn't really matter, it doesn't win the war, you still have a war to fight, there's still, you know, a lot of significant leaders of Al-Qaeda